So you want to study, you want to upskill, get a qualification, learn something new, but you work full time. And every time you think about adding study on top of that, it just feels impossible. I mean, you've got deadlines, meetings, family, and life. And the question that you might ask is, where does study even fit into your schedule? So naturally, you keep putting it off, and months, maybe years go by, and you're still in that same position of wanting to learn more, but not having the ability, not having the time. I'm a learning coach, and I've helped many professionals figure out how to learn effectively alongside their careers. And I also do it myself, so I'm able to study and work full time. So, study full time and work full time. I'm able to run a coaching practice, create content, volunteer, and I still have a life outside of all of it. And last year, I achieved a perfect GPA, near perfect GPA, and H1s across the board. And university in Australia is kicking up again, so I'm about to do the process again. The reason I'm able to balance full-time work and full-time study comes down to three things that I'm going to go through in this video, and I call it schedule mapping. So first, I scope exactly what's on my plate. Second, I map it into a schedule. So I don't use a calendar software, just a calendar software. I use a mind mapping software, and I'll show you what that is. And finally, I make sure that I cram early. So I'm trying to get done everything as quick as possible, and I'll show you what that looks like. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Miro. So Miro is a mind mapping software, and I'm going to build out my semester schedule live. I'm going to pull out my university units, my assessments, my deadlines, all of it, so you can see exactly what the process looks like from start to finish. And if you want, you can open up Miro, you can open up your mind mapping software of choice and do it alongside me. Okay, so let's get into it. So I'm just going to show you my old process, the one that I did last year to do really well. And my university splits it into trimesters. So you can see I've got like the 3 ones here. And yeah, it's a very messy process. Don't worry, I'm not going to make it look as if it's, you're like a psycho, I promise. But you can see that's the way that I used it here, and it really helped me keep on top of things. But we are definitely going to start from a new canvas, so it's all good. On the right hand side, you can see I've actually got my university board open. Now, some of this content is actually copyright, so I'm going to have to blur some of it, but most of it we'll be able to see in terms of what I'm going to do. But the first step of the schedule mapping process that I'm about to do is scoping. And what this entails, it just means going through exactly what I'm doing, like the units that I have for the next trimester. So for the next trimester, I've got HPS 203, HPS 204, HPS 209, and HPY 210. If you already know the other kind of things that you have for your other trimesters or semesters, if you're doing like 2, you can also scope those out. But I'm only scoping it for the most immediate thing, and I'd also recommend for you to do the same. So if you've got 2 semesters, just do it for the first semester. If you've got 3 trimesters, just do it for the first trimester. That's what I usually recommend. And this is the first step. I literally just take this, and now I'm going to do HPS 203, and then I might just put cognitive psychology there. Here we go. And then I can put HPS 204. That's going to be social psychology. Here we go. And then we've got HPS 209 here as well. HPS 209, which is cross-cultural and indigenous psychology. So I'm just going to, yeah, that's way easier. There we go. Bam. There we go. And then we've got that last one, which is going to be HPY 210. So that's introductory counseling skills. And let me just copy that. Here we go. And let me just paste that there. Now, you could get AI to do this process, but I personally like doing this process because I can use my brain to scope out everything as opposed to just being automated and not being part of that. So that's what we've done. Now, we're still not at that map part yet. We were just quickly taking a look. And now what we need to do is we need to identify the assessments and the due dates, the critical due dates that we have for each of these units. So this is going to be the assessments that I need to do. And I think I'm quite lucky this trimester, unlike last year, because I don't have a lot of live quizzes and exams for this trimester anyway. Maybe next trimester I probably have like more exams and more of an intense schedule. But from what I understand, I do have more essays and more case studies and potentially a few presentations. But I've clicked into these already, and you can see we're going to start off here. This one is for HPS 203. Now, this part is happening together. We're mapping these out, scope and map it out. So you can see I've got these covered. Now I'm going to start off with that. I've got two major assessments for HPS 203. The first one is a research report. So I can just like copy this. So research report, here we go. And then the next one, so let me just get that going. And I might do this in a different color because this is the assessment. And then the next one is going to be the actual end of unit assessment. End of unit, that's kind of like an exam, I guess. That's the exam that we have to do. So let me just copy that. Here we go. And let me just paste it into there. Nice. And you can see what we've done so far is we've got the unit name, we've got the actual the task that we need to do. And what I want to do, which is the most important part, is identify the deadline. So I might do this in another color, like a teal color, or actually red might make sense. So it's a bit more distinct. And then I will just click into this and we'll get some information to the deadline, but also into the assessment structure itself. So if we just click onto this, we go. I'm probably gonna have to blur some of this, but I can actually start to get an understanding of the deadline. Here we go. So this not too hard of an assessment this time around. So it's, here we go. You can see that there. And the length is, so it's 50% of the grade. And I've also gotten the due date, which is on the 21st of April. So today is the 7th of March. So I already kind of can get a sense of my deadlines. There's obviously a few more that I need to do here. And what I can do now is I can get the details of the actual assessment itself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to even download, I'm going to like leave a link. So if I can, it's a lot easier to just fetch this. So you can see like I'm just making it quite organizationally easier for me to fetch these things. So I can just put that here somewhere. And if there's any PDFs I can download, I'd love to download them. But unfortunately, it seems like I don't actually have a PDF that I can download here. Wait, maybe it is. Okay, yes, I do. So template. Okay, template is available. So I can download the template. Let me just download that. Here we go. Nice. And that's the awesome part. I can actually drag it here. And I'm just going to add it as a file, right? And then here we go. That's it dragged there. Nice. So you can see everything's there. And if I want to click through, I can. And then there's also the seminars. Well, I don't have access to the seminars because they haven't happened yet. There's a marking rubric, which is the most important in my opinion. So I'm going to download that here as well. Let me get that going. There we go. Nice, nice, nice. That's a rubric already sorted. And then there's also the, is there anything else on this part here? Referencing, I don't need that. Searching the literature, I already know how to do that, so that's fine. There's a lot of FAQs. And I can do this last part, which is like copy pasting everything here. So again, it's probably blurred because I don't want to get in trouble and just be in trouble for sharing this because it is all copyright. But what I might do now is I just want to read through a little bit what the actual research report is. Okay, cool, sweet. So, I mean, there's already enough information there. It's just going to be like interpretation of like some research that people did and, developing the skills. And I've done a lot of it in my own time. So this is not something that's too hard, but there we go. That's like the first pass that I do. And what I would do is I just do it for every other process here. So just to make this clearer, what I'm doing is I am identifying the unit. Here we go. And then I can identify the actual assessment itself. This one's really important. Like due date is a very, very important one. Especially if you want to do well and not lose marks on something as silly as like delaying it, right? And then also just like information about the actual task itself, which is really useful here too. Nice. So that's that. Again, there's more that I can flesh out there, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to do it for the remaining parts of my units, and then I'll actually talk about what I do with this information now that I've got a bird's eye view of what the next trimester will look like for me. So I'm going to pause the video here, But again, feel free to do this process. And yeah, I'm going to pause it and I'll see you in like a few minutes. Okay, so you can see what I've done is I've done it for everything. So it's all done. And I've done it for all my units. You can see I've got 4 units for this trimester. I've taken a look at the assessments. I've taken a look at the due dates, and I've got all the information. And now the idea is, because I've got all my due dates, now I need a cram. And this is one of the principles that's helped me stay on top of like a really competitive, well, not competitive, I guess, like a just tight schedule, right? The aspect of cramming early. So what I'm doing here is I am taking a look at my due dates, and I can do 2 things. I can either prioritize based on what's coming up soon. So for example, if I just take a look at all my due dates, I can see that there's going to be, this is my very first assessment that's due 15th, but then there's also this one that's on the 16th, and then there's one on the 20th, and then this one, right? So you can see it's kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're quite close to one another, which means that if I don't get a start now, that week is going to be, that week's 5-6 part is going to be crazy. So the big hack is cram early, and you want to use what we call the Zeigarnik effect. And this is what I actually practically do. I'm not going to demonstrate in the video because this is just quite straightforward. I just start on the assessment, and you know, a lot of people say, but it's week 7. It's due on week 7 and you need to study all these things, but it's like, you just want to get your best shot at trying it out by yourself. If it's a group project that I have, I'm just going to do it by myself as best as I can. Obviously, when I get to the group, I'll work. If it's an essay that I have, dude, I'm going to get this essay done like ASAP. So that's how I might prioritize based on the urgency and based on how imminent the deadline is. There's another way I can prioritize, especially because I'm very early on. I can just choose the one that I like the most. Because again, today's the 7th of March, and so I've got more than a month for a lot of these things to be due. So I might say, you know what? I'm most familiar with the research proposal because I read a lot of research, and you know, I'm kind of already did that last year and I did really well. So I might start off with that one. And you can see that's due on the 21st, but you might start off with that one. Maybe you start off with one in May, right? It depends on how you want to prioritize it. I just find it way easier to prioritize based on, cool, this one's the first one because it's the one that's coming up. And then this one's the second one that's coming up. Here we go. Here's the third one coming up. And here's the fourth one coming up. That's how I prioritize. And then once I prioritize, I just literally, you can see that in my really, really messy one here. I literally just circle the one that I want to focus on. So I'll just get like red. And then this will be my first focus. And since today is the 7th of March, I'm just going to carve out time to get it done. It doesn't matter. I'm going to read the rubric. I'm going to self-study. Even if the lectures aren't out, I'm going to use ChatGPT. I'm going to use different textbooks. I'm going to use the recommended readings that they give me. And I am just going to get this done as if it's due tomorrow. So again, we're not creating like invisible deadlines because that really doesn't do anything. We are just integrating those behaviors and habits that we would use if it was imminent, and we'll just do them today. So again, I would just pretend, okay, if this was due tomorrow, if it was not due on the 15th of April, how can I get this done tomorrow? And I'm going to use the note-taking process that I've learned, that I'm not going to go through this video because I've got other videos. I'm going to use my efficient note-taking that I've learned to learn the content. I'm also going to use the process that I use to write essays, which I don't have a video on yet, but I should make it. And I am just going to pretend to get this done as soon as possible because I know I'm not going to get it done immediately, but at least I've opened up the loop. And that's what that Zeigarnik effect is. It's essentially an unfinished task is easier to get back to as opposed to like a task that you've not started on yet. And I might actually just dip into each of these tasks. So today, if today is Saturday, if I had more time today, I would start on 2. Literally, I just start on 2. I'd open up a Word document or a Google Doc. I'd name it the file that I want to submit. I'm going to read through the rubric and I'm going to start doing a little bit of typing and a little bit of planning. And that way I can just link it back into my Miro map. And the reason this map is useful is because I can see it from like a glance, right? If you're using Google Calendar or like, which you should use like a scheduling software, obviously. But if you use like Notion, people have those pretty templates and it's like, dude, I don't care. Like this template was so much more useful for me because I could see everything from a bird's eye view. And when I finished it, I just cross it out. So that's what I would do here. And that's what I'd recommend for anyone to do if they want to make sure that they're able to balance that aspect of like full-time work and full-time study. You want to cram early, especially when you have time to cram. So on the weekends, I tend to be quite free on the weekends. I know of some people, not a lot, I'm not saying you should do this, who have taken like holiday leave a bit earlier in the year, and they just spend a bit of that time chilling, but getting also a lot of this done in cramming. Another way that I like using this is once I actually do this assessment task early, if I'm resourceful enough, I will rock up to the lecture. If we're doing an online class, I'll rock up to the online class, or I'll email my lecturer and I'll just give them my first attempt. I'll just be like, hey, what do you think? And most of the time, the conversation actually leads into something productive. They're like, wow, whoa, like you finished it a month early. Like, we haven't even gone through the seminars. And I'm like, I understand, but do you have any feedback, any thoughts? Now, sometimes you might get a lecturer that is a bit of a pain in the butt, and they won't give you any advice because they're like, oh, I can't because this is a formal assessment. In that situation, I would just use other lecturers. So I'm literally, if it's similar enough, if HPS 209 is similar enough, I might go to HPS 203 and be like, hey, I just want some feedback. I was doing this for another unit and I just wanted some feedback on the FAR transfer, like the transferable skills. What do you think about my research report skills? If it's similar enough, I'm going to be resourceful. I will network with people who are in the year above. And this is a really cool thing. Like, if you don't have access to any of this because unfortunately, if you are at an institution that is full of dinosaurs, you may not actually get all this information immediately. But at that point, it's like, just buy the notes. Just speak to people in the previous year and just find a way to get it. I don't have access to all the slides, but I bought them. I just went online and I just searched up HPS 209, 2025 notes. Cool. Download, study ahead. So that's what I'm doing here. That's the fundamental change that I'm making towards my assessments. I'm cramming early and I'm trying to get them done as soon as possible. I'm integrating that Zygonek effect where I know that over time it's going to be unfinished every now and then. But this actually allows me to then get all four of these that I've circled so far, get them like at least like the structure just somewhat done. And then by the end of the week, I've got like an understanding of the direction I want to take. I kind of know what I think my gaps are. I kind of need to go hit the books and study again. And I'm using opportunities in class, or if I'm attending class or studying, to then relate them back to my assessments. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm studying this thing. Since I've already started assessment, assessment 1, instead of waiting until week 6, if I'm studying this thing in week 2, 3, or 4, I can see how it relates. But a lot of people, they're very retrospective with their assignments. And that's why they miss out on very critical marks, because it's like, dude, yeah, of course you should have added that thing from week 2 into your assignment, but you forgot about it. So that's a big change that I make in terms of doing that. Practically what I do, I open up a Google Doc or a Word doc for all of them. I name the files and then I sit on one. If this is cross-cultural and indigenous psychology, I will actually study all the content in weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6 for this unit, and I'd cram that as well. Once I've done that, I'm going to map it all out, and then I'll start my essay. But again, that's a different process. And if that's something that you want me to make a video on, let me know. So this is the general scheduling process that I use that saves me a lot of time. This is actually what helps me understand my deadlines and communicate with work. So if I do need to go into university physically for an exam, I can actually let the team know, hey, I've got an exam on this day. And I let them know like, a couple of months, it's March now, April, May, June, I let them know 3 months in advance. And, that's, again, being proactive in that sense. So this is the process. Again, there's a lot more that goes into like, all right, how do you actually cram when you don't have access to the resources? How do you do it for essays? How do you write essays in the best way according to learning science and everything? And I can make a video on that. Let me know in the comments. This is just the first part. If you'd be interested in this demonstration, let me know.